a journey of becoming an entrepreneur is not something which is easy. It requires a lot of planning. So as a consultant, we carry huge responsibility in helping a potential business buyer to make that right and informed decision of buying a business. So we take, and this is something which is tried and tested. We have been following for the last 2.5 odd decades. So in order to bring the absolute accuracy or closer to being accurate in terms of finding what is the right and perfect fitment of choice of brand, we take into consideration a lot of things, which includes our financial expectations that a business buyer has, the commercial terms, for example, and the most important, what we emphasize is reduction of risk in the investment, which again comes with a mix of how the initial investment planning should be done, the operational expense forecast, the competition analysis, the support that you get from the company, the legal terms, and most importantly, how do you exit from the relationship. So all that is something that becomes a part and parcel, of our value proposition for a franchisee. So friends, I'll take you through this presentation. Any questions that you have, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer that. And before I go there, one more thing, which is also important to understand, franchising is a very big impact market. And when I say it's a huge impact market, it is touching everything that is being consumed today, right? Every day, whatever we are consuming is coming from a franchised business. It cuts across every industry. I sometimes get inquiries and questions which industry is doing great, which is a great brand to perhaps invest in. But if you look at the entire ecosystem, the franchising as industry, you will find all leading brands across industry, be it food, be it retail, be it education, be it health, beauty, wellness. You have successful companies operating across all these industries. And from the opportunity point of view, from the demand point of view, we have evolved over these years. And like I said, initially it was a very small set of business community, that was, or I would say of a community that was getting into business. But now when I look how this has become or evolved, today, out of 100 people who buy business, 60% are investors or entrepreneurs, I would say, who are getting into the business for the very first time. So the first generation of business buyers, the first generation of entrepreneur is a very huge and a big community that is unfolding. And a lot of this growth is attributed to even professionals who are coming forward to start their business. The industry is big and it is also going to become very, very big. Today, franchising contributes about 4% to our GDP. And this percentage of contribution is only going to increase because if you look at the economy, we are all becoming very, very formalized. We are all consuming brands. We're becoming brand conscious. So as we move from the organized to the organized, the share of GDP is only going to increase. So we take you through a small presentation where I'll talk about how do you assess what brand and opportunity is right, which does not come with assessing one single point. So what we did, we took a very holistic view, and all this has again come from the years of experience in our market. So we take into consideration the self-assessment. How do you assess yourself before starting a business? How do you assess the industry that you want to get in? And how do you assess the market where you want to open? Again, competition is something which is very important, which is peer-to-peer competition. And lastly, how do you assess the brand? So these are 5 assessment tools that we recommend every business buyer to take into consideration before starting a business. So friends, give me a moment. I'll just put the screen so that you can all view. And I'll request you to also have any questions. So you can put that in the Q&A box. I'll be happy to take that. And friends, one more thing which I want to say before I put my screen for all of you. I want you all to make the session interactive. So more questions you have for us, it's more engaging and would add a lot of value. So before I get started, there are a few questions to get better is something which I want to know. And I would request you to please use the Q&A box to write these questions. First and foremost, I like to understand, because starting a business is not a random decision that we want to take overnight. This comes with a lot of planning over a period of time. And like many decisions that we take in life, starting a business is one such decision which comes with a lot of planning. We take our inner circle, our family into consideration. We take consideration of our, financials. And any important decision always is backed with planning and also first and foremost the timeline. So even when I have something in my mind, I would backwards work, on the timeline. Say I have a timeline to start something, I would say I need 2 months to get that done. And we all follow and work backwards to come and closer to those timelines. So my first question to all of you would be, because I understand that all of you who have come in here, you're exploring business opportunities and you might have explored some brands. What is the timeline for you to start the business? Something which is very, very important for me to understand. Even while that timeline may not be immediate, you might still be exploring. I would still like to know. And all of you might also have a timeline which is immediate. I sometimes meet a lot of people who have been exploring for maybe a lot of time, but they say we want to invest something very, very immediately, right? So I would like to know that timeline for you, whether that's immediate, say 15 days, 30 days, it's 2 month time, 3 months time, 6 months time, 9 months time. I like to hear that from you. So please go ahead and write what is that timeline for you. Second is, what is the industry that you're interested in, right? So, and if you want to go even drill that down to even very specific category and say, okay, I'm interested in retail, but I'm interested in, say, footwear business. I'm interested in telecom. I'm interested in food, QSR, a fine dining restaurant. Go as specific as that. Third is your city of interest, is something I like to know. And lastly is your current profile. So when I say current profile, I like to know how many of you are first-time business buyers. Like I said, India has become very big on first-time business buyer community. 60% of people buying businesses are ones who are getting into business for the very first time. So how many of you are first-time business buyers? And if you have any prior experience of running a business or running a franchise business, I'll be also happy to hear that. So I repeat again, I see some questions coming in. I'll read that out. And so again I repeat, so what is the timeline for you? कितने टाइम में आप शुरू करना चाहते हैं? कौन सी इंडस्ट्री में, कैटेगरी में शुरू करना चाहते हैं? कौन से सिटी में आप शुरू करना चाहते हैं? And if you can also talk about your own profile, whether you're a first-time business buyer or somebody who has already experience of running maybe your own independent business, or you're a professional or a franchisee, you can mention that. So guys, please come and write. More engaging it would be if you write and I get to know you better. So thank you. Amir Dubeji, you're looking at starting a business in the on the food industry, and very specifically you've said about the QSR in a 2 months time. And at Franchise India, like I said, franchising cuts across all industry. We work with almost every leading brand in the country today who is franchising and looking for expansion. And one thing I missed out to tell, we also run a big international arm, which is Fran Global, which also works with international companies to come to Indian market and other markets. So apart from our presence in India, so Franchise India has presence in 97 cities in the country. So most likely, wherever you are from, I would have my local teams, representative, advisor, consultants who are there in your city, who could perhaps, have a meeting with you. You could set up a time with them. But we also have overseas operations in 9 countries across the globe. So we also work with international brands to bring them to Indian market, and also all these international brands to all these, 10 global markets across the world. So anybody who's also considering any international brand for the Indian market, you may please also reach out to us. Thank you, Amirji. So QSR restaurant, great. Rajesh Chauhanji, thank you so much. All right. I like what you've been very, very precise. So 15 days is the precise time that you've put. Food industry is what you are keen on. Noida is where you are. And I would request, we have a big team which sits out of Pinnacle Towers, which is very close to Noida. So any given point in time, maybe in this week, you can set up a meeting. I have Mr. Praveen, who is part of my channel. He sits out of Noida. Perhaps I'll recommend him to connect with you, and you are a first-time business buyer. Great, Rajeshi. We'll be happy to explore some opportunities with you. And if I understand the investment also, we'll be happy to narrow down on certain brands. Seasoned professional worker with great, Amirji, that's helpful. You've been working for a long period of time. So you're also a first-time business buyer. You're working with some of the leading MNC companies in the country. All right. So we have our great businesses in Raipur also. Maybe offline we can discuss that. If I understand the investment, I'll be happy to recommend certain businesses for Raipur market. Wonderful. So great, guys. Keep writing in. I see a lot of questions and also a lot of comments which have come in. So I'll put my presentation. As you write, I'll be happy to take these questions also. The session is not about me, not about Franchise India. It's more about you. So more questions you write, more benefit you would have. And even while you want to take services of Franchise India or you don't want to take Franchise India services, my recommendation would be that you at least put maybe some brainstorming time with our advisors, so that you're able to kind of narrow down on what you want to do. This really helps, right? So okay. So these are 5 assessment tools I talked about, which every business buyer must take into consideration before starting a business. Whether you want to do this on your own, you can do that. If you want somebody, an expert like Franchise India, who help you, bring all these assessment tools and then give you businesses, we do that. Sometimes I meet investors, and I would say a lot of times investors come and tell me, oh, you have great experience as a company. You've been advising international brands, Indian companies, working with them. So if I tell you I have a 20 lakh or a 30 lakh investment interested in food, give me the best brand that you think is right for me. It is not as random as it looks like. It takes a lot of effort at our end to even narrow down 5 companies. Like today morning, I was speaking to one of my partners in Bombay. He gave me the criteria of a couple who wanted to start a business, and they had 5-6 criteria. I said, let me find out what is closest fit to what they are looking at. And it takes some time, at least about a week to 10 days, for us to understand the fitment, assess all these 5 tools, get information from you, and then advise what are these 5 or 6 options that we would like to suggest. So these are 5 assessment tools that we recommend. The one is self-assessment, industry, market, peer assessment is competition, and brand assessment, like I mentioned. Now, what we have done is, under these 5 assessment tools, we also created very clearly, the 25 points, right? So when I say these 25 points are points where if you kind of, tick mark against these points, you get your own scores. You can score yourself how fit you are to take that opportunity, which is very important. Sometimes we kind of, score ourselves on just one parameter, and we feel that was the right thing to be done, but that is mostly not the case. A lot of our investors who just take into consideration just one big criteria and go out to invest, that investment might not always be a right choice. So we have taken this holistic view of creating your own scoreboard. So if your score is 20 plus, the opportunity you have selected is great. If the score is 15 to 20, still good, you can move ahead. But if your overall score is 15 and less, then we do not advise you to go ahead. It can be combination of even 2 assessment tools. Maybe the industry and the market don't complement each other. Maybe the brand and the market don't complement, right? Maybe the competition was better than the brand that you were assessing. So it can be a combination of 1 or 2 as well. So I'll explain you all these. First and foremost is obviously your investor mindset. So, sorry. First and foremost is your entrepreneurial mindset. So before getting into anything, what we recommend any business buyer or a potential entrepreneur to align, their financial goals and also their life goals. Unless the alignment between financial goals and life goal is not done, it is very difficult to even go to the next step of what investment I want to do, what industry want to get in. Second is financial goal, right? So any investment that we do, investment itself means that I'm dealing with the future. It should be able to give me dividends in the future. I should be able to get business in the future. So financial goals typically are different depending on what stage of life we are. So I'll explain that also with an example. When we make investment in any asset class, right? So when it's an asset class, it can be an asset like a property. It can be an asset like maybe I'm investing money in, for example, stock. I'm investing money in a business. There are only 3 fundamental goals for any financial investment we do. One is safety. Safety is one big goal. Second is income, right? So when I look at investment, I want to ensure that I also have some income from the investment I do. And third investment goal is growth. So when I say safety, income, and growth, it also implies 2 other important things. So which is, I call that the TRR rule. So all these 3 are also proportionate to the timeline that we're looking at getting the returns of the investment we have done. Second is what kind of return do I expect, right? And lastly is the risk that I I'm willing to take for the investment I'm putting, right? So now when I say I'm looking at an investment which should be completely safe, so I'm also saying that I'm not looking at very high returns. Any business opportunity, any asset class that is safest to invest will never give you very high returns. I'm sure you all would agree. We see that in stock market. We see that in a lot of conventional schemes where we invest our money. Same thing is also with businesses. Second is your income. If you come with an income mindset, an investment mindset of, then you need to look at moderate risk and moderate return. But when you look at growth as a mindset and an opportunity to invest in a business, you're telling yourself that I'm willing to take higher risk, but also I'm looking at higher rewards. There is no other equation that works. There is no business that I've seen which would give you highest return with no risk. And any company which claims, I sometimes see a lot of campaigns which are run by companies. I sometimes even see advertisements in even media, like even Economic Times, Times of India, sometimes companies would advertise and say you have no risk, and even by investing maybe ₹1,00,000 every month, you can start earning 50,000 rupees. I've not seen in my last 2.5 decades of experience in franchising. This is the only equation that works. Third is the capital, which means the kind of money that you invest in the business. Here also, there's a thumb rule that needs to be followed. We don't advise too much of soft loans to be taken. And the reason is because the cost of capital becomes very, very big. And especially when your investment is small. So when I say small, it is anything which is less than say 30 odd lakhs. I would recommend that you bring a larger part of that investment from your savings. Maybe 80% of that should ideally come from your savings, and 20% can be something which can be loaned. So 80-20 rule, which means 80 is your equity and 20% can be loaned. But if the project is big, like it could be a hospital you're investing in. It is a big project, like maybe a retail outlet, like a Chroma for that matter, which requires a huge investment of say 6 crores you're investing in. You can fund, or maybe a business of jewelry. There's a gold on lease opportunity which is available. So if you're looking at certain businesses where we recommend, then that option should be there. But if your investment is less, then bring in your larger equity. For all other businesses which are high on investment, the thumb rule which operates is about 50-50. 50% bring your own money and 50% can be loaned. Fourth is time involvement, which is very, very important in a business, and especially when we look at franchising. Franchising is a business which requires your time involvement. It is an active business. It is not a passive investment, right? So when I say passive investment, it is not an FD that you've done in a bank and you get returns on that. It is a business which requires your time involvement, and also the efficiencies at the unit level only comes in when an entrepreneur operates the unit. So time involvement is a very important aspect. If you want to put your time, only then get into a business. Having said that, there are businesses which don't require maybe your time, but would require maybe a big investment to be done, right? So some businesses or companies also do a franchise-owned company operated model. For example, a brand like Chroma I talked about, they do franchise-owned company operated. A lot of international companies, when they come to India, they don't want to give the operations to the franchise partner. They retain the operations, but they make him invest in the business. But most of these investments where the company does not require you to put your time, the investment requirement is comparatively heavy, which means it can start anything upwards of 1.5 crores and go maybe up to 40-50 and above. In case of, I would say, 5-star hotels or super specialty hospitals, the investment even goes higher. And second is, how do you assess the industry that you want to get in? So whenever we look at any industry that we want to get in, the first and foremost thing that you must kind of evaluate is how big the opportunity is. So when I say how big the opportunity, it means how big is the addressable market, what is my customer or the audience which is available to take that. You should also consider, do you have a first mover advantage in the market? And is it a commodity? Is another business? It's a Me Too brand. So these are considerations that you should take when you look at the industry assessment. And a lot of people take only a very short view, or a very short-term view, so to say. But any investment that you're doing has to fit with the future, which means that is there a relevancy of that opportunity or that industry or that brand, say, in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? If so, then the opportunity that you want to maybe explore is good. So अगर वो relevant है 5 साल में 10 साल में, there was a time when preschools were shutting down, but all these credible chains, the big chains in the country, they were expanding, they were tying up with the right real estate, because they knew, once the pandemic would get over, kids would still go to school, and that is something that we have to take a view of. So future fitness of the opportunity is very important. How do we look at the demand and the supply gap? Now, demand and the supply gap does not mean that 10 brands doing what we are doing already exist in the market, and there's no need for another brand to come in. There can be a gap in the quality of the product. There can be gap in the quality of the service. It could be pricing. It could be target audience. So all that, or with the solution which your customer is looking at, is not being solved by the current player. So understand what gap is there. Sometimes you have a lot of players in the market who are offering the same services, it looks like, but maybe you have an audience which is coming for a premium product, and the brands in that market are not able to cater to that kind of need. Lastly, innovation, which means that as a company, as a brand, you need to look at industries, you need to look at companies and brands which are relevant for the customer. Any brand which is not relevant never sustains over a period of time. Third is your market assessment, the market that you want to open. We understand the demographics, what is the demand, which I talked about. The need gap is something which has to be very closely analyzed. But I'll focus on two things, which is the regulations. Regulations are very important because regulations are both a state subject and a center subject. So anything that becomes, for example, regulations would mean maybe the liquor license policy of your state. It would mean maybe the electric vehicle, guidelines for your state. It could mean the drug license policy for your state, right, which is needed for starting a pharmacy. So all that is something which is both a center and a state subject. So you need to understand what regulations talk on that particular industry in your state. And lastly is the location. How do you choose one? Because we all know that to make a business successful, location plays a very, very important role. The thumb rule that we follow for choosing a location is look at maybe the top competition in the market. When I say market, means wherever you want to open, you've now selected a brand. You've selected the industry, the category, you selected, zeroed down on the brand, and you look at what locations you want to open. So what you do is you look at the nearest competition, right? I'm not saying if you have taken a franchisee of, say, a cafe brand, you only look where Starbucks is present, but look at the top competition in the market, which could be a regional competition, a local competition. Look at the spots within that market where they currently operate. So if there are 3 competition and they're operating out of, say, 15 odd locations, understand out of these 15 locations, which are the locations where they have the highest business coming from. And these locations, 100%, or I would say 99% would do well, right? Because you already have a tried and tested model which is operating and also doing well in that market. Then is your competition assessment, which is peer-to-peer. So what you look at is, what is the advantage you have over the competition. Now, the competition advantage can also be a lot of things. It could be the margin play. It could be the brand support. It could be the go-to market for a brand. Which a lot of, especially new age companies today, consider sometimes a lot of older brands, when I say they've been in the system for long. But it can be interesting to understand maybe new entrant in the market has a great go-to market, right? It helps you acquire your customer base quickly. They help you in the launch. So all these are important things that you must speak to the brand before you decide. Understand what the offering is, how different the offering is to the competition which is present. Is there a buyer for the offering which the company is presenting? So these are considerations when you look at the brand that you have selected, and also maybe at least I would say 5 to 6 competitions minimum that you should evaluate before deciding on or closing, narrowing down on one opportunity. And lastly is how do you assess the brand that you want to finalize? So what you look at is obviously the people who are behind, the credibility of the company, and also the people who are behind the legacy, how committed they are to the community that the company is serving to, how standardized are their standard operating procedures, right? So a lot of companies, they get into franchising, they copy paste the model of their immediate competition, and that's the wrong way to do it. We work with a lot of brands in the same industry and category across India. But I don't see a model, even if I work with, say, 20 chai brands, I have so many chai brands across all regions. The model of all these companies is very different, which are consulting team creates, because all these companies come at a different stage of their life cycle, and based on their life cycle, they would have a different go-to-market strategy. So we work with them to create that, understand how they have standardized their operations, understand what operating costs you will ensue when you start the business. Is there any kind of reinvestment which is required? Typically, reinvestment is required when you have long-term contracts. It could be refurbishing the entire infrastructure. For example, if you're running a healthcare, maybe a hospital or a clinic, for example, a dialysis clinic, you might need more equipment. You need to refurbish, for example, a chroma store. The chroma company signs an agreement, an average of about 20 plus years. So you need to refurbish but every 5 years. So understand what is that level of investment that is required. Understand the margins, the return that you get on the investment. Now, ROI is something which is again a very ignored term. A lot of people don't even have a specific answer to what ROI they look at. To give you an answer to how you should understand or study the ROI, understand how big the horizon of the opportunity is. So ROI is proportionate to the horizon of the opportunity. जितनी opportunity की life बड़ी होगी, उसी के हिसाब से आपका return on investment calculate होता है. Now, if I give an example of a K-12 school, the ROI takes almost about 5 to 6 years, right? Because the horizon of the opportunity is long. If you look at the other opportunities, right? So, for example, maybe a salon that you're opening or a restaurant that you're opening, all these businesses typically take almost about 2.5 odd years to about 3 years to get you return on the investment. But when the horizon is big, you have long-term relationship. Even for that matter, if you want to open maybe a fuel station, right? Typical ROI is very long. You are required to take a long-term lease, maybe 30 years, 20 years. These are long-term lease that you sign. And based on that, the ROI is also calculated. Margin is another important area. We sometimes feel that if margins are higher, my business is great. But if my margins are small, my business is not that great. Margins, again, depend on the industry we are in. And also we need to understand whether I have a value game or a volume game, so to say. So for example, even in a business which is retail, for example, a jewelry business, the margins on diamond is different to the margins on gold. But it's more of a value game, right? The value of the ticket size is comparatively high. A lot of businesses, like maybe opening a departmental store, there the margin play comparatively is low, but you have big volumes, so it's more of a volume game. Fifth is your legal agreement, is where you should be very, very closely working. Franchise India also has a legal arm, which is Fran Legal, that works with investors and also works with companies to make their agreements and vet them. Because in India, we don't, we work only on a British contract. There are no, so that means it has to be very tight. We follow what has been signed by the parties in the contract, and that is what becomes a binding between the two. So this is what we do, friends. Training and marketing support are another two areas. When you assess the brand, understand how frequent is the training and what aspects the company is training you, what kind of support they give you, maybe at the time of launch and ongoing, and also the risk which the company is hedging. Typically, when you talk about retail businesses, your typical risk is your inventory, right? Because you end up investing a lot of money in the inventory. Most of the companies would hedge you. They would buy back the stock or help you liquidate that stock. So understand how that company is hedging that risk. Now, what we do at Franchise India is following, and this is something which is tried and tested. We follow this entire process irrespective of the timeline, right? Whether you want to start the business in 15 days time or 15 months time, we don't bypass any of these stages. So what we understand is, your requirement, like I said, it cannot be random, but we take a lot of time to even come back to you what opportunities would be relevant. So what we do is a fitment, which is SOMF fit, which is a strategic fit. We understand your profile, your education, maybe your professional background, your interest, perhaps a property that you own and what can work on that property. The O stands for operational fit, which means your time involvement in the business. Third, M stands for market fit, which means what kind of businesses would work in the market where you want to start the business. And lastly is your financial fit, which is the finance or the investment you want to make. Now, based on these four fitments, our team at Franchise India, they kind of explore from the various opportunities available in that market and come out with certain opportunities which they share with you. And we also participate in the entire process, which I'm saying, from the meeting with the decision makers, getting a tour done at their outlet or their center, to structuring the deal is something where we participate, and finally help you in signing of the letter of intent and the agreement. So as an investor advantage member, you get all these 10 things, which is you get 1 hour of evaluation meeting with our teams. Industry selection is what we spend 1 hour with you. We also work with you to arrange 10 to 15 discovery days with you, which are the brands that we select out of the evaluation that we have done. We also spend about 2 hours, which is maximum number of, or I would say hours, or the time that we dedicate to structuring of a deal. As an investor, on day one, you would know the opportunity, आपको royalty पता होगा, आपको investment पता होगा, but structuring of a deal takes most of time, and that's where a bigger value addition comes from Franchise India. So that's what we do. And so, friends, this is what it takes to become a investor or a registered investor with Franchise India, because we receive almost 1 lakh inquiries every month, prospective business buyers who come to our platform, our exhibitions website, who are looking at opportunities. But somebody who's serious about the business, who's serious about starting a business, and also serious about and appreciates, respects the time that a consultant puts in, is whom we work very, very closely with. So this is what we have to offer. So I'll request all of you, friends. I'll also leave our details in the chat box. There's a hotline number that you can reach out to, and also an email ID. So our hotline number is 9717683838. If you're exploring something, you want to meet any of our local advisors, you can WhatsApp on this number, and our local team can connect with you. And our ID is feedback at franchiseindia.in. So thank you so much for being with us, friends. One more thing before I leave, we have a webinar which is happening at 12 o'clock today. This is a company called Window Republic. It is based out of Noida. They're looking at franchise partners, largely for North India. So if you're keen to explore, these are webinars that we bring every day to you at 12 o'clock, a new opportunity that we bring every time. And you can, in fact, click on the link and register yourself. If you allow me, I can share the link with you. It takes maybe a couple of seconds for you to register yourself. Just allow me a moment. Great. So this webinar starts at 12 noon. I've shared the link in the chat box. You can quickly copy that and register yourself. And even if you want to register yourself with the subsequent webinars that we do, you can go on the Facebook page of Franchise India and register yourself. So you get all the notifications of companies that we launch on a day-to-day basis. Thank you so much, friends, for being with us. All right. So I've shared our details. Mr. Dubey, you've asked what model Starbucks works. Starbucks is all company owned and company operated. The company is owned by Tatas in India, Starbucks rights, and they own and operate all locations by themselves. So it's all owned and operated by Starbucks. Thank you so much, friends. Have a great day.